And next up, we have Emily Nimsakont, who's here with us at the Commission, and she will be presenting on technology tools for technical services, and she works here at the Commission as a cataloging librarian. Emily, take it away.
All right, well, hold on, we gotta get our presentation.
That's right.
Hold on.
You need to try slides.
Yeah, just belay that order.
I assume it's on your...
It's on my sheet, yeah. It's called Technology Tools for Technical Services. It's not in a folder, it's just loose. Yeah.
Ooh. That's a very promising graphic.
There we go. Now it's on the screen. And we are like a couple of minutes ahead of schedule, but that's okay. It's only 2 minutes. I say we just keep on going. Waiting for 2 minutes, is not a big deal. We'll just, we'll just...
I'm not going to say anything earth-shattering in the first 2 minutes, maybe. All right.
Go right ahead.
All right. Thank you, Lisa and Krista, and thank you, ITART, for hosting me. I'm excited to have the chance to do this presentation. As Lisa said, I'm talking about technology tools for technical services. Basically, things that can make your life easier when it comes to the technical services aspect of your library work. Mostly focusing on cataloging, I would say, obviously given my background as a cataloger. I try to kind of gear the presentation towards people who either are not 100% catalogers, it's just one of your many hats that you wear, and so you want something to make your life easier. Or people who are, maybe 100% catalogers, maybe not, but in a smaller institution that maybe can't afford access to things like OCLC Connection or CatExpress. And so some of the things I'm going to cover are free sources of MARC records, for example. And I will say that everything I'm going to talk about is free. So there's nothing that's going to cost you money, which is always a good thing. I'm going to talk about two different categories of tools. One is sources of MARC records, like I said before. These are things that you can just go to on the internet and convert other information into MARC records. And then the second group will be what I call data manipulators, and that's basically working with these MARC records once you have the information in your library. Maybe if you want to have a batch of MARC records and you add the same field to all of them without having to go into everyone individually and things like that. So first we're going to start off with the sources of MARC records, and I'm going to talk about a particular source of MARC records that are called MARC converters. And so this would be really useful for finding MARC records where things that are not available elsewhere. For example, if you're in that situation I talked about before where you're a smaller institution and you don't have access to the OCLC, the WorldCat database, and so maybe you're relying largely on the Library of Congress. They do make all their stuff available for free. However, they mainly work with books, traditional print material, and so if you have DVDs or maybe ebooks, you're not going to find it in the Library of Congress catalog. So these three websites take information from out there on the web and convert it to MARC records, which is why they're called MARC converters. We have the Amazon to MARC converter, which takes information from Amazon.com. The IMDb to MARC converter, which takes the Internet Movie Database information, so it's really useful for moving pictures, videos, DVDs. And then the web to MARC converter, which will take pretty much anything, but it's most useful for websites, especially if maybe you're in a school library and you have educational websites that you want your students to have access to. You can take the information embedded in that website and convert it to a MARC record. So I'm going to go through each of these really quick. The first one is the Amazon to MARC converter, and I assume you'll be collecting links, Krista, for to have up with the recording, so cool. So yeah, don't kill yourself trying to write down these URLs or anything, especially that one. It's not very pretty, but the tool is awesome, I promise. It's worth the ugly URL. So a situation in which I would see this could be useful, this is sort of my test item here. It's an ebook made specifically for the Kindle, so it's probably fairly self-published, called Gentle Parenting Workshop. And so this is something that the Library of Congress wouldn't have it because I checked to see if they had it, and they must not have chosen to register it through copyright through the Library of Congress, which is how the Library of Congress gets most things. I checked, I couldn't find a record for the ebook version in OCLC, so even if you did have access to OCLC Connection, you wouldn't necessarily have a MARC record here. So if you don't want to do original cataloging, you can go ahead and check out the Amazon to MARC converter. So I'm going to do a search for that Gentle Parenting Workshop. And it's a very, very bare bones home screen here, but it's just cut to the chase. For those of you more familiar with cataloging, you can specify if you want it in RDA format, which is the new cataloging rules. So I would probably recommend checking that box, because even if you're not consciously cataloging in RDA, most copy cataloging stuff you're getting these days is RDA, so this will keep things kind of streamlined. And so I will do a title search. And you can choose which particular type of resource you're looking for. And this was a Kindle item, so I'll search the Kindle store, and there it is. And if you do click on this link, you will just be taken out to the Amazon information. But then it also has the MARC record over here, and so you can view it. If you pretty much trust what you're going to get, there was also just an export or save button, so you don't even have to view it ahead of time. But looking at it, you'll see that it's not perfect. You know, for example, it doesn't have subject headings, which can be a bit of a drawback, but it's a good start. It's better than sitting down and creating a record from scratch if you are a cataloger who's pressed for time, or if you are a one-person library trying to do everything and you want to kind of streamline your cataloging a little bit. So once you've looked at a record, you can either, let's see, you can save it to your batch if you're thinking you're going to want to do more than one. And then you can export your saved records there, and you'll get a text file that you can then upload into your local catalog system. So that was the Amazon to MARC converter. Now the next one is the IMDb to MARC converter, and it works pretty much on the same principle. In fact, I think it was created by the same people. As you can tell, the URL looks pretty similar. Again, this uses information from the Internet Movie Database.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
And because they do a really good job with it. I mean, they are good with it, you know, differentiating names and things like that. So I'm going to do a test search for the Italian Job movie. And this is even more bare bones page here. Let's see, Italian Job. I can talk and type at the same time, I promise. And the thing you'll notice about this one is that your results page doesn't come back with a list of, say, you know, the VHS and a DVD or, you know, various versions. So the editing you'll have to do with this might be more related to the physical aspect of what it is. Because IMDb, it sort of just catalogs the movie sort of, you know, generically as an abstract thing rather than the physical item. So, you know, there's nothing in here that tells you it's a DVD, so you would have to add that in. This one, interestingly enough, it doesn't have subject headings, but it does have genre headings. IMDb obviously categorizes things using genres, so action and adventure films, crime films, you may or may not use these in your catalog, but they're there. You'll notice that in the 700 fields here, the names are kind of in wonky format. You probably don't want the word screenplay in front of the screenplay writer's name, and it's not inverted either. So again, there's going to be some cleaning up to be done. You know, you may or may not want a link to the poster image in your catalog, but it's a good start. You know, you're not sitting there staring at a blank MARC record going, oh my gosh, how do I catalog this? And again, this one I would say would probably be most useful for somebody who doesn't have access to OCLC, because, you know, a lot of the DVDs and stuff will be in the WorldCat database, but they wouldn't be in, for example, the Library of Congress, which is, you know, sort of another default source of free records. So that was the IMDb to MARC converter. The last one is called the Web to MARC converter, and this one is not associated with the other two. It's by a different group called Digital Libraries to School Libraries, and it's focused on creating records for internet resources. And they're aimed towards school libraries, but can be used by pretty much anyone. I'm going to use it to create a MARC record for pbskids.org. And this one I will mention that you can search and see if other people have created a record already. You might not necessarily have to do it from scratch, but if you do, all you do is enter the URL and do the Create Record button. And then it basically, it pulls some of the information from the website and then gives you the option to add some other things if you had particular keywords you wanted to put in there. So, I mean, I guess it could be useful if, outside of regular subject headings, you wanted to put in things that you know your students would be looking for. That is an option. If you know the call numbers, Common Core standards, again, this is geared toward school libraries. Library of Congress subject heading. Let's see here. So let's say we wanted to put in a keyword for videos because there are good videos on the PBS website or things like that. So this is kind of different than the other ones, that it's not necessarily 100% created for you, but it gives you a template that you can work from. And then it will, pop up a record for you. Obviously, you would probably put more information in there, and then you can download the MARC record and then import it into your own catalog. So those were the sources of MARC records, the MARC converters that can help you get MARC records into your catalog. Now I'm going to talk about two tools that you can use to kind of work with the data once you've got it, or to make working with large batches of data easier. I will say that in contrast to the earlier tools, those were all, you just go to a website and you use it on the web. These do have to be downloaded to your own computer, but they are freely available. So, you may need to have admin access to your computer to use it if, your computer team does that for you, but yes, they are downloadable, but they are free. And so I'm going to talk about MARC Edit and Open Refine. MARC Edit, the top URL there is the website to go to download it. It is the product of one guy, his name is Terry Reese, and this is a labor of love for him. He puts a lot of work into it. He also has a lot of tutorials available. That second link is YouTube video tutorials for just about anything you could want on MARC Edit. Even if it's not included on that page, if you go to YouTube and search MARC Edit and whatever you want to do, I guarantee you'll find some kind of video out there for you. So there's a lot of help available. MARC Edit basically helps you edit MARC records without going in and touching every single one. That's what I would say is the main use. As we see, there'll be some other sort of more auxiliary uses of it, but by and large, it's a batch editor for MARC records. So it has one tool is called MARC Editor, and it has global editing functions. So you can go in and add and delete fields to a whole bunch of records. If you got, a bunch of records for ebooks from Overdrive or something like that, where you want to add local fields, but you don't want to touch each one of hundreds of records individually. Or you can edit subfields if you need to add subfields. You can swap or copy field data from one field to another. If you had maybe, call number information that you wanted to copy from the call number field to your local holdings record, you could do that. Edit indicators, you can generate call numbers, you can generate various reports. Basically, it's just anything you want to do to either edit a bunch of records at once or kind of get an overall view of various records. Here's just a quick screenshot of working with MARC Edit. As you can see, when you're doing the MARC Editor, you get just a file that lists the records one after another. And if you wanted to, you could go through and just type and fix things each record individually. But the real power comes from doing things to all of them at once. Here is the add or delete field utility. And one case in which I use this is we get, here at the Library Commission, we get MARC records from the government printing office for federal government documents. And so, the records are all great, but if we want to import them, I want to add a 599 field, which is our local information about where it's shelved in our library and which category it falls into, the fact that it's a book and the fact that it's a federal document. And so I chose to add the field 599, and I typed in the string that I want added to every single 599 field, and then you'll simply click Add Field, and it will add it to every single field, and then you can export them and import them into your catalog. You can also use it if you want to, for example, extract data from your records and you don't want the whole record. Again, when I work with those records that come from the federal government, we have a whole team here of the GovDocs that I want to get approval from before I import them into the catalog. So, and they don't need to see the whole MARC record. So I run the MARC Edit utility to extract just the title, the call number, and the link to see them online, and I export it to an Excel spreadsheet, and that's a much more user-friendly view for them than looking at the whole raw MARC records. So I just send them the spreadsheet and say, hey, which of these do you want? And they tell me which ones to import. I go back to MARC-Edit to add the local fields that we need and import them into our catalog. So it's just a way of either adding stuff to a bunch of records or extracting information from a bunch of records that can you do it a lot easier. I mean, this would be a lot easier than copying and pasting all this information from all the individual records. In addition to the MARC editor, there are a few other things that are useful with MARC-Edit. They have a Z3950 client, which for those of you who may not be familiar, that's a protocol that allows you to search for MARC records in other catalogs. So if you don't have access to OCLC, you can use that in order to kind of search other places to download MARC records. So I guess this kind of falls into the first category of being a source of MARC records. A newer feature they've added with the implementation of the RDA, Resource Description and Access New Cataloging Rules, they have created an RDA helper feature which converts a CR2 records to RDA. So, RDA is designed to be backwards compatible. You don't have to do retrospective conversion on your whole catalog, but if you wanted to, you could export everything, put it into MARC-Edit, and run the RDA helper. I haven't tried it, so I don't know how 100% accurate it is, but it's a pretty cool idea, and it's free. There are, a lot of services out there who are going to ask you to pay for RDA conversion, and so RDA helper is available for free. It also has a feature of integration with some ILS software. The most recent documentation I could find was from late 2012, and they said the only one they currently worked with was Koha, but they were trying to get set up with others where I watched one of the YouTube tutorials on it, and they have a plugin that just says Koha, and then you can basically search your Koha database from within MARC-Edit and do your edits there, and then import them back in, and it looked pretty slick. So those are some other interesting things about MARC-Edit to keep in mind if you are thinking about implementing this tool. The other data manipulator I'm going to talk about is a tool called OpenRefine. It used to be called Google Refine, so it came from Google. It is, I've heard it referred to as Excel on steroids. It's kind of for working with your data, but you can do a lot of really cool things with it. Again, this is something that's available for free. You do need to download it, though. OpenRefine.org is the website for it. And there is a book that looks really good I haven't gotten yet, but using OpenRefine there's a whole book about how to work with this tool to clean up your metadata and kind of edit things in batch. It's sort of like MARC-Edit, but again, on steroids. You can do a lot more cool things with it. I've seen people use it for non-MARC metadata, things like digital libraries, content DM collections, but I also have seen people extract their information from their MARC catalog and use OpenRefine to clean it up. Here are some features, and I basically copied and pasted because I found a blog post that really succinctly said what OpenRefine does. You can use it to do things like remove duplicate records, separate multiple values contained in the same field, analyze the distribution of values throughout a data set. So if you want to see how often particular subject headings are used or a particular publisher or something like that, that's useful for that. And then the last bullet, group together different representations of the same reality is a kind of not immediately understandable way of putting it, but basically if you want to bring together and see if somebody included the publisher's location as Chicago, Illinois, and somebody did it as just Chicago, and somebody did it as the word Illinois spelled out, and somebody did it with the IL abbreviation. You can bring them together. It has algorithms behind the scene that can say this looks pretty close, and they'll bring it together, and then you can kind of decide if that's something you want to clean up or if it's something you want to leave. If it's something that's actually going to be confusing to the users of your data, or if it's something that is important to leave it the way it was on the item that's being cataloged. I do want to plug a really good webinar where I got a lot of my understanding of how to use OpenRefine. This was put out by ALEX, the Association for Library Collections and Technical Services, basically the Tech Services Division of ALA. And the recording and the slides and everything is available for free at that link. And I used some of their examples for how they used it in these next few slides I'm going to show you. This is sort of that bringing together different examples of the same reality. A project that they used it for was they had a special collection of Nordic publications, I believe, and they wanted to see which items that were already in their general collection would work in the special collection as well, but they're more cataloged and indexed the publishers, so they use Open Refine to bring together different, obviously the publishers' names are usually not necessarily transcribed consistently, so they brought together the various versions of the publishers there. Cluster and edit is a really cool feature of Open Refine. As you can see, they brought together the various versions of places of publication. There's a lot of different ways of saying Minneapolis, Minnesota. Who knew? And so you can, once you see this, you can decide if you want to merge them all together. What they've done here is, they see all these various variations here, and they decided that they want them all to be Minneapolis, comma, Minnesota, period, without any brackets, without any question marks. So once you see all the possible values here, you assign the one that you want, and then merge selected and recluster, and it will make the edits for you. So if there's something that's inconsistent in your data that you want to make more consistent, Open Refine is a really cool tool for that. You can also kind of see the numbers of each instance of something in your collection. So again, we're looking at places of publication, and you can see that it can give you an alphabetical list of, there's one of most of these, there's 5 of here, 3 things were published in Akron, Ohio. And again, if you want to kind of make global changes, they decided there are 10 under Stoughton, Wisconsin, and they decided they want to do postal code abbreviations instead, so you can type in the WI and then hit apply, and that'll automatically replace all 10 of those. And obviously 10 is not a big deal, but if you're dealing with 150 or even more, that's a huge time saver there. Open Refine can also be used to facilitate linked data, which, if you have heard anything about what the cataloging geeks are talking about these days, linked data is sort of the Brave New World promise to come after Mark. And I would recommend another website called freeyourmetadata.org. I attended a webinar just yesterday about their stuff. They're actually the guys who wrote the Using Open Refine book as well, but Open Refine can be used to identify other sources of data on the web and things that you can link your library data to, so that when people discover these other sources, they can discover your library data and vice versa. So if you're interested in linked data at all, Open Refine is another cool thing to check out. So those are my technology tools for technical services. Does anybody have any questions?
Oh. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. Nothing came in while you were talking.
Okay.
But does anyone have any questions for Emily about, come on, our catalogers out there?
Are there any catalogers?
I have no idea. If any people have catalogers. Around cataloging issues.
Accidental catalogers who have been forced into cataloging. Hopefully this can make your life easier.
If anybody has any questions, type them into the questions section of the GoToWebinar interface.
If not, you have my email address there. You can always shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer questions after the fact.
Yep. Or if you have a microphone, let me know that, and I can unmute you, and you can ask your question that way. Brave
catalogers.
Yes.
It's not on.
The catalogers are all too introverted to ask the questions.
Not a typical.
I know. We're being stereotypical here.
Cataloger.
Yeah, and all the links will be in the recording. And
yep, we'll have the PowerPoint presentation available afterwards as well. I'll have access to that.
Cool.
We'll get the links up there for you, so all of these resources you'll be able to access after the meeting. No problem.
I can see that these are maybe the types of tools where you need to play around with them a little bit more before you have questions. So.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely good tools, very cool things to be able to pull out that information. But yeah, like you're saying, you are going to need to still tweak these things for your local system and for how you need to use them and any edits you may need to make for yours. Yep.
I like the free.
Yes,
well, yeah,
free, very good. That's very important, yes.
Free and easy to use. All right. Well, it doesn't look like anything urgent has come in, so thank you very much, Emily, for being with us here today.